Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Easy Explanation. In this video tutorial, we'll be understanding the concept of access specifier in C++. So what is access specifier? So this concept or the concept of access specifier is used to determine or define the visibility or accessibility of class members from various parts of program. So there are mainly three types of access specifier. So the three types of access specifiers are, so the first is private. So if you define any of the class members as a private, then they are restricted only within that particular class. So private class members are restricted within that class in which it has been defined. Another is public access specifier. So public class members can be accessed outside of the class, can also be accessed. Okay, so can also be accessed outside of the class in which it is defined. So if you define any of the class members, whether it is a variable or function, as a public member of that class, then that particular variables and method can be accessed outside of the class also. So that is the meaning of this public access specifier. Then the third is protected. So this protected access specifier is mainly used in case of inheritance. So suppose if you are creating a subclass of a given parent class, so if you have defined any of the data members as a protected data members, then the protected data members can be accessed within that class and in its derived class. So the protected data members are restricted within the class and its child classes. So protected class members are restricted within the parent class in which it is defined and also to its child classes. So mainly we will be using the concept of protected access specifier when we are understanding the concept of inheritance. So I'll be discussing this concept later. So let us understand the concept of private and the public access specifier. For that, let us create a file called as a private demo or the access specifier demo or something like this. I'll rename it as a access demo. Access demo.cpp. So C++ program to understand the concept of access specifiers has include IO stream using name space std. Let us say the class name is access and I have defined a simple variable called as a int data. So this is a class that contains just a single class member, which is a variable called as a data. Now let us try to access this data outside of the class from within the main function. So int main and return 0. In order to access this class member, let us first create a object access obj, and let us try to access this obj dot data is equals to 10. If I run this code, what will be the output of it? So g++ access demo.cpp. You can see data is the private member of a access. So by default all the data members, all the members of the class, whether it is a variable or function, are declared or defined as the private data members. So private access specifier is the default access specifier of a class. So default access specifier. So private is the default access specifier of a class. So if you have not defined if you have not explicitly mentioned any of the class member as a public or protected, then they are by default the private members of that classes. So since the data member is by default the private data member, you cannot access this data member outside of the class, so it throws there like data is the private member of access class. Now how to access those private data members? So in order to access the private data members, we will be using public methods. So for that you can explicitly mention like something like a private. So most of the time what we'll do is we'll define all the class variables or the variables or instance variable as the private attributes and the method as the public attribute. So let us define a method called as a set data int d and data is equals to d. So we will be using our public method in order to access the private attribute of a class. So void set data will set the value of data class member, and then we have int get data that will display the content of the data variable. So return data. So if you need to access the private data member of a class, we'll be using the public method of that class in order to access those private data members. So the private data member cannot be accessed directly, so we'll be using it through the public method, or public method act as an interface to access the private attributes. Now since this is not possible, or since this is restricted, so what we'll do is we'll be calling method called as obj.setData, and let us pass the value of data as 100. Now once this is done, let us try to print the value of data through this public method getData. So cout value is equals to obj.getData. Now let us try to run this code and see the output. G++ access demo, we are not getting any errors, and we got the value as 100. So by default, what the things that we need to remember about this access specifier concept is, by default all the members of a class is private. So that is the first point that you need to remember. So most of the time, or in most of the scenario, what we'll do is we'll define all the class variables or the instance variable as the private attribute, and if you need to access the private attribute, we'll be accessing it through the public methods. So always use public method to access the private attributes from a class or from within a class. So these are the concepts that you need to understand. And the another access specifier, which is the protected. So this protected access specifier is the concept related to the concept called as inheritance in object-oriented programming language. So whenever we will be discussing the concept of inheritance, I'll be discussing this concept of a protected access specifier in those topic. So thank you so much everyone. So if you have any questions regarding the concept called as access specifier, then please let us know in the comment section. And now let us discuss some of the multiple choice question related to this concept. So you can see public access specifier and the concept of a private access specifier and protected access specifier. Now let us discuss some of the multiple choice question related to it. So the first question is, which access specifier allow a class member to be accessed from anywhere in the program? This is the first question. So the answer is public. So we have a public, private, protected and static. So if the data members are defined as the public, then they can be accessed outside of the class. Which access specifier restrict the access of a class member only to the class itself? So obviously the answer is private. Which access specifier allow a class members to be accessed from within the class itself, I mean derived classes. So derived, since this is a concept called as a derived class, so derived class is a concept related to inheritance, so the answer will be protected. I think the answer is wrong here, so the answer will be protected here. So answer is C, protected. Sorry. Okay, yeah, here it is the correct answer. Which access specifier allow a class member to be accessed from within the class itself and its derived class? So the answer is C, which is the protected. The private member of a class can be accessed directly from any function, any derived class, any friend class, none of the above. So private members are restricted only to the class in which it is defined. Which access specifier is a default for a class member if no access specifier is defined? So obviously the answer is private. So we have demonstrated this thing through the code also. Hope every one of you remember that. So access specifier are primarily used for improving program performance, controlling the visibility and accessibility of a class members, enforcing the coding style, specifying the memory allocation. So the answer is B, controlling the accessibility and visibility of a class members. Which of the following statement is true about the public inheritance? So I think we'll be discussing this thing in a concept called the inheritance. So let it be. Which access specifier is commonly used for data members of a class? So data members should always be private, so the answer will be private here. So the data members are private, should be defined as a private, and all the methods should be defined as a public, so that we can access the private data member through the public interfaces or the public methods. Which access specifier is commonly used for member function and provides an interface to the access the private data member? So answer will be public. So by default we have to forcefully make all the methods as the public attributes of a class, so that we can access the private data member through the public method, or public methods can be used as the interface to access the private data member of a class. In C++, can derived class access the private member of its base class? No, never. So the private members are always restricted within the class. If you need to access the private data member, means if you need to access the data member of a class from a derived class, then you need to make the data member as a protected within the parent class. So you need to remember this thing related to the concept called as access specifier in C++ or in object-oriented programming language. Thank you so much everyone. If you have any question, please let us know in the comment section, and please like, share and subscribe our channel. Thank you so much everyone.